So during that committee hearing, the Prime Minister took the opportunity to publish his tax returns. I can't fathom for the life of me why he would choose to do that literally in the middle of that evidence hearing.
Well, quite. Isn't it fascinating though when it came out? I suppose it wasn't quite the bombshell I was expecting. I don't know what I thought. I thought I was going to open it up and I was going to, like, there was going to be like big red letters from HMRC being like, tax due or something. But it was actually a really small, it was a small amount compared to his familial wealth.
Yeah.
His wife is wealthier than the Queen. And this woman is bringing in money to the estate. I mean, hundreds of millions. They're worth like 150 million more than King Charles. Comparatively, he brought in 4 million over the past 4 years, or 3 years, sorry, excuse me. Do you think there's like a conversation at home where it's like, he's kind of like, he just gets to go off and do his like little politics job? And have like,
don't worry, mummy's making the money.
Do you know what I mean?
I'll have the strap-on lubed up when you get home.
Yeah. And she's like the non-dom.
Apart from when they're in the bedroom, then it's
quite.
the dom. Yeah, I mean, what was it, 1.9 million this last year just gone, made, and something like 400 grand in tax paid.
Yeah.
It's obviously, we were joking about it, but the strategy is clear. It's like big news day. There was something else on there as well, Brexit trade deal that they published.
Yeah.
You were talking about Australia
there was
or something?
There was a debate going on in Parliament about scrutinising the Australia trade framework. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's like one of our biggest, I mean, it's actually pretty small, but it's one of the biggest trade agreements that we've signed after Brexit. So it's pretty important to have a look at, what Tim Tams are coming in, what lamb's going out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so, they used the opportunity to sort of get the bad news out. The other, I guess, very major piece of parliamentary business as well was the vote on the Stormont break for the Windsor framework. Yeah,
and which would have been a huge story had Boris Johnson not been actually in the middle of his opening statement to the Privileges Committee, him going off to vote against the Windsor framework that Rishi Sunak has put down. And I actually I think it would lack nuance if we said he only voted against Rishi Sunak's Northern Ireland framework because he was trying to be mischievous or he was trying to, mess it up. I actually think he went against it for valid reasons. I don't think the way that this framework will operate is best told through sausages. Essentially, if you're selling sausages in Northern Ireland, this framework stipulates that the rules on sausages have to be the same in the EU as the UK. It basically means if the EU decide to change how they want to sell sausages in the next coming years, either the UK has to change the way that they sell sausages or Northern Ireland becomes an outlier. So what this framework actually does is align us with EU regulations for the rest of time. And if we don't align ourselves with EU regs, then we invalidate the Good Friday Agreement. Is this really boring?
No,
Sorry.
not at all. I'm listening.
It's my sausage alignment boring. But what Johnson is saying is that is not, it doesn't work. It means in the next couple of years, if they change the rules on light bulbs, we're suddenly having to overhaul all of our legislation. So it's not Brexit. That's what he's arguing.
I guess the alternative, and it's the one that he clearly doesn't care about because he sold the DUP and the Unionists down the river, is that if you don't do that, as those changes come into sausages and light bulbs, Northern Ireland just becomes increasingly divergent from the rest of the UK.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not a good piece of legislation. And before anyone says that I'm pro-Brexit or pro-Johnson or anything like that, I'm not. I'm just laying out the fundamentals.
It's extraordinary when you sort of take all these pieces and you put them together. Basically, I think don't call it a comeback, but I think we're witnessing the end of certainly Johnson's political credibility, maybe not necessarily his career, in that in the Privileges Committee hearing. You've then got the rebellion against the Windsor framework, which is basically limited to about actual no votes. I think it was 22 Conservative MPs. There are about another 30 or 40 who were away, and the reporting seems to indicate that the whips were giving out slips for any Tom, Dick and Harry to basically not have to vote no. But there were some no votes, small, admittedly. You're talking about your Boris's, Liz Truss, the kind of Johnson fanboys like Gullis. and then I think it was Ian Duncan Smith as well, was sort of one of the other big names there. I think they'll actually be pretty happy with the size of that rebellion. You know, they had the Labour votes, it was going to carry anyway. It's smaller than I think people were expecting. You got Johnson collapsing and also Keir Starmer. I mean, there was a poll from Delta Polling out yesterday, I think it was, that, and it's only one poll, so there is that caveat, that narrowed the polling lead to 10 points for Labour. I think Rishi Sunak might be putting his feet up at the end of today and thinking, we've had a pretty good day in the trenches.
Yeah, not too bad at all. He must have been so relieved when Starmer started on that.
Yeah.
At PMQs, starting on the Dame Casey report. It's so easy for the Tories to deflect and blame it all on the Labour mayor of London. He must have been like, what a day.
That was interesting, wasn't it? Because that was one of the findings of the report, that the relationship between the mayor and the Met is dysfunctional. That's a quote.
But it also said that the relationship between the Home Secretary, the Tory Home Secretary, and the Met was complacent. So that advice kept being given to the Home Office, and they've just decided not to implement it, and that's why we're still in the problems that we are in now.